We want to congratulate previous guest and sword athlete Camille Herron, who recently took the win at the Bandera 100K and secured a golden ticket to Western States. If you want to learn more about what fuels Camille, be sure to check out Sword's website at www.drinksword.com. While you're there, you can use coupon code HeartlandRunner to save 20%.
Welcome to the Heartland Running Podcast. Join Crystal, Andy, and Chandler as they explore all things running related in the Heartland and beyond.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Heartland Running Podcast. I'm Crystal.
I'm Chandler.
And we are without Andy tonight. Andy, actually, there is an ice storm I think he's in Carthage. And so he is without power. And it's very funny because I got the most interesting message from him today, letting us know that this is happening. And I'm like, it was the quote of the day. It's always good to be a runner so that you have tools there to be prepared. So he had his headlamp that he uses for running in the dark, and he had to use it today to perform an emergency C-section on a cow.
Everyday problems, you know? I think everyone can relate to that issue.
Like, there's my quote of the day. Yeah, not so much. So thanks everyone for joining us. I'm also excited. We got another 5-star review on iTunes. Yay! Do you want to read this one, Chandler?
Can do. Che May 86, if I'm pronouncing that right. I may have just butchered it. Posted. This show is great, super conversational, and they make sure to hit on topics that most runners can relate to. Super informative and motivating. Thank you for the kind words there. We always appreciate iTunes reviews.
We absolutely do, because I know what a giant pain in the ass it is to actually leave a review. So when somebody takes the time to do it, I'm like, that's really cool. So thank you so much, Chame86, if that's your name. So tonight, we're hoping to have a topic, again, that most runners can relate to, or at least we can be informative. And we're going to talk a little bit about strength training tonight. A couple weeks ago, we had Jordan Hasse on, and she talked a lot about this and how important it is to her. In fact, she was talking about how she could deadlift twice her weight, which I still can't get over that. That's really mind-blowing for what she does and at the level of a runner that she is. So strength training is one of those things that we know that we should do. A lot of times we don't know where to start or what to do. So tonight we invited someone on who I've known for a while and I've actually trained with, Ren Jones, and he's going to help solve some of these myths and mysteries behind the subject. So Ren is an NASM certified personal trainer and corrective exercise specialist. He is certified in sports and exercise nutrition through Precision Nutrition. That's a mouthful. And he holds the only online personal training certification available, and that's through Personal Trainer Development Center. So welcome, Ren.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Great. How are you doing?
Man, a little bit better than Andy, I think.
So a lot of places are starting to get the ice and snow.
One on C-sections. I've got no C-sections here in Southern North Carolina. I feel like when I leave after the podcast, I think I'm going to take a trip out to the country, see if I can find some pregnant cows, see what happens.
Jump some fences, have a nice night out.
I mean, it's a slow day here in North Carolina. Why not?
Well, I don't want to hear about any cow tipping stories either. Only helpful.
The only point is to tip the cow.
What do you think the strength training is for? It's all pointless if it's not for tipping cows.
Absolutely.
So you're
absolutely C-sections and cows. That's my main focus. I she spoiled most of what I was going to talk about because I had a whole cow C-section portion. Now I got to figure something else out to talk about. No pressure.
Oh, that's funny. So instead of being out there flipping tires, you're out there flipping cows?
Pretty much. Whatever we got.
Whatever you got. That's right. You got to
discriminate.
Make use of what you've got.
Pretty much.
Well, I want to start off with a little bit about you. One of the things that I really like, you have a really great story, a very strong story about why you left kind of the corporate world to dive into being a fitness professional. And I was wondering if you would share that story with us.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Again, like Crystal said, I've known her for a while, and she's heard the story ad nauseum at this point, and I share it everywhere I go. So So I was in insurance. I was an insurance executive, training other insurance agents in sales, life insurance, not health insurance. I was training insurance agents, working 70, 75, 80-hour weeks, driving all over the state of North Carolina. And one day I got a call that my older brother, I have two siblings that I was raised with. My older brother had a massive heart attack and it passed away suddenly. This was around 2007, 2008. In any case, I continued to work with the insurance company after that, even though that was definitely something that was shocking, if not somewhat debilitating. You're never really confronted with your own mortality quite so much as if you have a sibling that passes away or a peer that passes away. So I had that experience, and about 4 or 5 years later, I'm still working the same job, and I get a call that my sister has died in a car accident. Actually, I had talked to her from about 9:00 p.m. that night until about 9:15, and about 9:30, I got a call from her husband, and I initially thought it was her calling from her husband's phone because she would talk the phone until it was dead. My sister was a big talker. You can probably tell that I'm not. But I thought the phone had gone dead, and her husband was calling. He called and said that the state troopers had just contacted him, and Robin, my sister, had hit a tree, a single car accident. She passed away. We later found out that she drank and got into that car. So my brother died due to a lifestyle-related issues of a massive heart attack. My sister, the same thing, unfortunately, but due to addiction. And then, unfortunately, about 3 years after my sister passed away, my mother died due to complications from a stroke. She had a big stroke in 1996 and sort of lived with it for several years. And we just sort of saw her health decline, over the course of the years, and I can't imagine the stress of giving birth to two humans and burying two humans the way that she did. So the great opportunity in that last situation, though, was the fact that as the only sibling left, I got an opportunity to spend a lot of time with my mother. She required a lot of care. And we had conversations that most young men probably don't get to have with their mother on purpose, with the upfront knowledge that you are witnessing the end of someone's life take place in front of you. And I noticed how she never talked about work. She talked a lot about Chandler, which I thought was odd, but she never talked a lot about work and, those type of things. She talked about all her life experiences. And what I was able to take away from that was, number one, I was in the wrong industry. I was making pretty good money, but I was waking up with headaches and dealing with things like acid reflux. Some days my chest and my stomach would hurt upon waking up because I was in a high stress job. And it was and I'd always been into fitness. I'd always been the guy at work that people would ask, Ren, should I eat this thing? Or Ren, what kind of workout should I do? I started exercising at 16 and just never stopped. So at that point, going through that experience with my mom, I made the decision, a conscious decision that, hey, I'm going to branch out of this whole corporate thing. It's not for me. It doesn't suit my mentality. I know that I have a passion for music, and I knew that I had a passion for fitness and exercise. Unfortunately, P. Diddy never called me back, so I went with the exercise thing. And that's sort of how I got into this industry. And that's really that's the center point of where I coach from. I coach from the perspective of health allows you to spend more time with your loved ones, hopefully. And even if it doesn't allow you to spend more time with your loved ones, it helps you to spend more quality time with your loved ones. I mean, working out doesn't mean that I won't get hit by a bus tomorrow, but it does mean that while I'm here today, I can enjoy a roller coaster or going to the park or, any number of things because I'm able-bodied and mentally in a good place to take advantage of life. And that's really what it's all about. It's not about the length of your life or how long you live. It's how much life you put in each day. That's exactly how I got into this industry. So a little bit of tragedy, a lot of lessons, and here I am.
That's great. And you have helped a ton of people and you continue to do so. So, we're appreciative that you made that decision. And for those who don't know, I trained for over a year with Ren.
Over a year.
Yeah. And had some wonderful success with that. And then went back to kind of focusing on more ultra distances and stuff. And I, every once in a while, still go back to Ren when I kind of have those niggles and I know I have some issues, and he'll give me a little program and set me straight again. So very, very appreciative of that, which I'm really curious too, because I know recently is when you got the certification for the corrective exercise specialist. What exactly is that? I know a little bit, but if you can explain kind of what that is and what you plan kind of to do with that.
Yeah, only if you let Chandler talk some.
I promise.
So, I'm in your corner, Chandler. I'm here for you, buddy. It's 2-on-1 tonight. You can take it. But so a corrective exercise specialist, long story short, is a person that helps you with sort of injury prevention and can also help you with recovering from injury. On a medical level, you're thinking about a physical therapist, really. So maybe you've got a knee injury that requires surgery. You get released from the surgery. You go to your physical therapist. Once the physical therapist releases you, normally you're ready for normal function. You're talking about things like sitting down and standing up. Things like if you had a shoulder injury, things like reaching up into your cabinet to get something out of the cabinet using the affected side. You're prepared for sort of life. What a corrective exercise specialist would do is take you from sort of rehabilitative life stuff back into active stuff. So a lot of times I'm the person that someone will see after they've been released by a physical therapist, and I take you from functional stuff to fitness functional stuff, if that makes sense. And I also correct things up front to prevent you from giving your orthopedic surgery bonus for the holiday season next year. That's pretty much what I do as a corrective exercise specialist, using assessments, using exercise, strength training, range of motion training to sort of bring the body back into balance, which is a lot of what Crystal and I did initially when we worked together before I was ever a corrective exercise specialist.
Yeah, it was great because you were able to identify some stuff, because part of how it works, maybe you can quickly explain when you sign up for online training, because that's how we did it. You're in North Carolina and I'm in Ohio. If you can kind of explain how you do the assessments. Sure.
So first, let me explain, because Crystal's very modest about this. You may hear me refer to her as the First Lady. Chandler already heard me call her First Lady, and he was probably like, what? Crystal was the very first online client that I had. I literally drew some names out of a hat, I think, on a Facebook video or something, or I asked for volunteers, and Crystal volunteered along with 2 other people. The other 2 folks sort of fell through. So I had no idea how to train a person online at the time. I was already a certified personal trainer through the National Academy of Sports Medicine. And, you know, to her credit, she sort of helped me build this online process. So what I did was, what I do online is I have the person send me a video assessment of one movement. It's called an overhead squat. There's no weight involved. I ask them to take off their shoes, get in front of the camera. They throw their arms overhead and they get down into a seated position and they just squat up and down about 7 times. Then I have them turn to the left or right to give me a profile shot. They do the same thing. And the way NASM trains their personal trainers, we can identify overactive and underactive muscles and range of motion issues by watching that squat assessment. And it's almost like a parlor trick, because I'll call the client back after they send me the assessment. I'll say, do you ever get pain in your neck? And they'll say, oh my goodness, I do. Say, what about that right shoulder? Does it feel a little stiff from time to time? Oh my goodness, Ring, you're a genius. How did you know that? I've been watching you through your camera on your computer. So I'm able to pick apart, not just me. I'm not the only one that's able to. I'm not from Krypton or anything, but NASM trainers are able to sort of see movement inconsistencies and then program exercise that will either, 1, lengthen your tight muscles, or number 2, strengthen your underactive muscles. We talk about lengthening and strengthening, which really applies to runners to a great extent. And one of the initial things that we noticed about Crystal, as she sent me her side-by-side photos, was her posture change. Her shoulders came back. Her chest was more upright. and her posture improved. And I think this was after like the first 30 days or so, right, Crystal?
Yeah, I think it was pretty quick.
It was pretty quick. So what I'm able to do is now I have an app. I've gotten fancy. I didn't have any of this stuff when I first started with Crystal, but there's a Fitness Jones training app that you can download through for iPhone or for Android, and I can load all the exercises there that a person is going to perform in their routine, and they just follow through with those videos. It's so intuitive that I get a notification as they complete the exercises that day, and it tracks things like measurements, like their weigh-ins, if they want to weigh in, their personal best records. So the day that they lift the most they've ever done on the deadlift, I get a notification of that. It's a really great program that's a much more efficient process than it was back when Crystal and I first started together. The funny thing was I got an opportunity to train her again recently. She had a leg thing. What was it, a knee or a hip or something?
Oh, I don't know. I've had so much. I can't remember what that one was. It was something with my, right. It wasn't an overuse injury, but yeah, I think it was with my, It was a leg, I think.
So I saw her post on Instagram about it, and I was like, hey, Crystal, send me a squat assessment. And she was like, she had that, I should have had a V8 moment where she pops herself in the forehead. She was like, right. And when she sent me the squat assessment, she said, I already see it. I can see that this squat assessment is messed up. She was like, give me what you got. So we programmed something for her quick, and a few weeks later, I think she was back on the road.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome.
That just sounds amazing. You can pick up so much just from that one simple like range of movements, but I guess it does kind of incorporate most muscle systems, doesn't it?
Oh man, absolutely. I've got ankle, knee, hip, low back, shoulder, chest. Yeah, I can see pretty much all of it from that assessment, and it's really intuitive. I think the difference for me is that there weren't very many NASM trainers that had tried to do it virtually, because normally we're there for the assessment, we're right there with you, and we can sort of circle around you and ask you to repeat some things. So Crystal was really helpful, Chandler, in sort of communicating to me what was transferring through distance and internet and sort of what wasn't transferring through distance and internet. And, she was the first young lady that I trained, and that's why I call her the first lady, Chandler, and I expect you to do the same from here on out.
Wait,
or else.
And I also like being referred to as a young lady. I'll take that too. That's better than ma'am.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll never ma'am you. I promise I'll never ma'am you.
That's why I like you.
Always young lady.
So what we thought we would do tonight is we open this up to our Facebook group so that our listeners would have a chance to ask very specific questions. All the things that runners are wondering about, and so give you an opportunity to answer those. But before we jump in, I have one question that I wanted to ask. And so it's January, and we have all these people setting resolutions and runners included in that. And so we're set, it's part of our pattern. It's who we are. But we may even have this, the resolution of this is a year, I'm going to do the strength training. I'm going to do, X. In your experience, because you've been doing this for a while, when people set these goals or resolutions, what do you see separates the people between the ones who give up and the people who are actually successful at it?
Oh man, that's a great question. And I'm actually going to do a video about this on Facebook, probably next Tuesday. And the video is going to be entitled The 3 Biggest Mistakes with Starting a Fitness Routine. And I can tell you, number one right away is overdoing it. That's one of the biggest separating factors for whatever type of fitness, wellness, physical resolution that you come up with. People are going to throw the kitchen sink at that thing. It's been 6 months or 6 years or 6 decades, and you want to make up for all that lost time in 2 weeks. So I start on Monday. By Friday, I'm going to be in terrific shape. So I'm going to run. I'm going to strength train. I'm only drinking water. I'm cutting out, this and that. It goes on and on and on, and you'll see it. You guys can probably observe it on your various social media channels if you're on social media. Because right now we're in what I like to call the honeymoon bragging on my spouse phase. That's where you get married, and every person you see, you say, "Hey, look at my spouse. Look how awesome my spouse is. Have you seen my spouse? Look at." So what we've got going on right now is everybody's posting about their workout. I just killed this workout. I went twice today, 2-a-days for the next week. I just ate my broccoli and pale chicken. I've had my orange sweet potato, my green broccoli. Hey, here's the picture of what I ate today. Like, we are in the bragging honeymoon phase, and that's sort of where it starts. So throwing the kitchen to sink at everything at initially is a big invitation to falling off the wagon hard and somewhere around March, because you're doing too many things and it's not sustainable. Sustainability is the key to every change that we want to make in our lives. And if we start something that we're not going to do forever, then we're going to lose the results of whatever we do. Are you really going to have a shake for breakfast, a shake for lunch, and a healthy meal for dinner? Or at some point, are you going to want to eat some eggs? Because if you want to eat eggs at some point instead of that shake for breakfast, then somewhere along the line, you're going to lose the result that you get from that thing. The second thing by far with the nutrition is starting with subtraction instead of starting with addition. People are going to pull things out of their lives. It's the equivalent of ripping babies from their parents' arms to raise them in a circus. Okay, I'm going to take sugar away from myself. I'm going to take dairy away from myself. And don't get me wrong, there's some very real intolerances out there. I'm going to take soda away. I'm never going to eat donuts again. Like, people are going to start nutritionally with subtraction instead of starting with, I'm going to add an extra serving of vegetables to whatever I eat. So much better. I'm going to add an extra glass of water. Or when I go out this weekend and drink heavily, I'm going to drink some water in between those drinks. The greatest nutritional protocols, the easiest nutritional changes, the best way to get it to stick is to start with addition instead of subtraction, because our brains don't work in negative patterns. Humans just don't. We don't associate a no or a negative. If I ask all the listeners out there to close your eyes and do not think about your kitchen, whatever you do, don't think about the cabinet. Don't think about what your refrigerator looks like on the inside or outside. Do not think about what's on top of that refrigerator, all that mail. Do not see it. You can't help but focus on it, because humans are goal-seeking organisms. So it's equivalent of saying, don't date that boy. That's the only boy your daughter's going to want to date. And we make that mistake with associating a negative with something that we want out of our life, where we should be associating with the positive. I'm going to eat more vegetables. I'm going to eat more fruit. So much better, because you're fighting against your own psychological cues when you try to subtract things out of your life. So those are the two biggest things that I see that are going to set people back year after year after year, in addition to not hiring me. Plug, wink, wink.
Well, and while you're saying that too, you do put out a lot of great Facebook videos. Where can people find you on Facebook?
Oh, I'm at Fitness Jones Training. Just Fitness Jones Training. I'm the same at Instagram. So, and like Crystal said, like, I'm pumping out free stuff like it's a giveaway. Like I'm in the aisles of your local Costco or Sam's on a Saturday morning. Like, I got samples everywhere. I got samples on every aisle. You don't like the cheese, just move down 2 aisles. I got crackers down there too. Like, so I get, Crystal can attest to it. I give a lot of stuff away.
So you're saying people are fools if they don't check out this Facebook and Instagram, right?
Just foolish behavior, uncalled for, unprecedented levels of pandemonium and bedlam.
They need to be adding this the Facebook.
That's right.
You need to add Fitness Jones Training. That's right.
That's exactly right. In a non-creepy way.
That's always
get that out there.
That's always good. Well, let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and jump into listener questions. And why don't you go ahead and start with these, Chandler?
Can do. So, a listener question, first one we have from Andrew. He asks, first off, just what are the benefits of strength training? And a question I'm sure you've been asked a lot. A lot of people, I'm sure, ask this before they start working out. But won't I get bulky? Won't my muscles be so big I can't run?
Oh, my gosh. Yes, Chandler. Oh, my gosh. It's had a nickel for every time. So first, the benefits. What are the benefits of strength training? When it's done properly, strength training will bring the body into balance. And Crystal can attest to that. Now, that's dependent on having some type of assessment. You don't want to just throw activity at your body. I mean, you can do that, and it happens quite often, but it's better done if there's some type of assessment. And if there's an assessment done, then what we can do, we can get everybody involved. The analogy I always use is that for the folks that have been in any type of schooling situation and been cursed to have to do a group project in school, particularly if you're a good student, there's going to be one student in that group, like Ren was, who doesn't want to do much, the lazy guy. And you just tell Ren, hey, Ren, look, don't even meet us in the library, buddy. We'll take care of this. Just get your grade. Your muscles operate like that as well. So if you've got underactivity in your glutes, guess what? Somewhere on your body has to compensate for that. A lot of times it's going to be the hamstring. And guess what? You pop a hamstring. So the benefits are bringing the body back into balance. As far as getting bulky, man, I wish. Andrew, if you're out there listening, if it was that easy to get bulky, brother, man, every man in your gym would look like Chris Evans as Captain America in Marvel's Avengers. Like, I wish bulk was just falling off of the shelves like that. But when you're talking about getting bulky or gaining mass, we call that hypertrophy, hypertrophy. You're looking at a very specific set of what we call acute variables: the rest period, the amount of the weight, the amount of repetitions, the amount of sets, and most importantly, for adding big muscle is nutrition. You can do all that weight stuff right if you're not overeating, having a calorie surplus of some type. You're not going to get big muscles anyway. Third piece of that pie is that genetic predisposition. Everyone wasn't Arnold Schwarzenegger because everyone wasn't blessed with the genes of Arnold Schwarzenegger. So most people don't even have the capacity to add that much mass. So no, your muscles won't be so big that you can't run. You can let that worry off your mind, Andrew.
And Andrew keeps going. He has another question here. And I think this is a question that I hear all the time from runners is what kind of strength training should runners do? Should I do lower weights and higher reps or higher weights with lower reps? And I love, as he puts it, to maximize my running gains.
Oh, it's all about the gains, isn't it? Now, did he spell gains with an S or a Z? If he spell it with a Z, he's my new best friend.
It's with the S.
Oh, okay. Well, he's still okay. I like them properly spelled words. Great question. Great follow-up question. So the best kind of strength training for runners, from my perspective, this has been my experience, is sort of circuit training. And when you're doing circuit training, you're putting exercises back to back to back to back with very minimal rest, no rest actually in between the exercises. You may have a squat followed by an overhead shoulder press, followed by a bench press or push-up, followed by an upright row for your back. You rest a minute, and then you repeat all those exercises back to back to back. This is beneficial for runners for a couple of reasons. Number one, endurance. When you do a circuit training system like that, and Crystal's done mine before, so she can probably attest to this, man, you're burned out. Like, it looks easy on paper,
but it's lies.
But man, you're huffing and puffing about it. Yeah. Crystal can tell you, man, I think our initial conversation, Crystal, was something like, oh, this looks pretty easy. And like our very next conversation was like, holy moly, what just happened to me?
Ren is the devil. Yeah.
I am the devil, or at least a high-ranking official in the inner circle. But it's fairly endurance-based when you do circuit training with, yes, fairly light weights. So you're getting a good cardiovascular workout, even though it's a strength training session. So you're not sitting around resting for like 2 minutes in between sets. I mean, it's back to back to back to back. And what you'll find is that your run times will improve because you're able to maximize load for a greater period of time. So yes, lower weights and higher reps is probably the way to go, unless you're specifically targeting some type of strength, or unless you've got a mixed event. I've done training for Spartan racers before. the obstacle course racers. So you've got the endurance portion, but you got situations where you got to get up over that wall or climb that rope or climb that cargo net. And in that case, you're sort of mixing the two things together. I hope that's a good answer for you, Andrew.
Yeah, I think, and the other nice thing about doing the circuit training like that is that you can be in and out quickly.
Yes, it's not an all-day gym fest. It's not an hour and I don't know what people do for 2 hours in the gym. I will never understand that. Never, ever.
Instagram?
To me, it's just a clear indication. Yes, that's an Instagram thing. That's just people bragging on something that is absolutely not necessary. Absolutely not. But yeah, you're in and out. You're in and out. Great question.
Great. Do you want to read the next one there, Chandler?
Can do. Question from Dave. He asks, laying out a maintenance plan to sue through a training cycle. Did I read that right?
Wait, I think to go through.
To go through a training cycle.
I think I I boo-booed that one. That one's my fault. But yeah, so I think what he's talking about is, during the off season where somebody might be lifting a little more and so you're not running as much. So then once you transition back to, higher training for running, how do you, kind of a maintenance plan for strength training?
Absolutely. So this is sort of a twofold answer, because one thing that we ignore sometimes in going from one training protocol to another is the nutritional aspect of the different stress on the body. So, when you're strength training, you may not have as high a caloric expenditure as when you're constantly running, because you're burning through some calories as you're doing those runs. So, number one, consider the fact that in the strength training phase, you may not need to eat quite as much. And as you get into the running phase, and this depends on your strength training goal, but as you get in the running phase, you're probably slowly going to increase your caloric amount, specifically those carbohydrates. You're going to want to sort of dial up the carbs a little bit because you're going to have the activity to sustain it. The other part of the maintenance is really making sure that you take care of flexibility and range of motion. I think I also introduced Crystal to the foam roller. Was that your first foam rolling experience when we trained initially?
I had one that sat in the corner, but that was kind of the first time I really actually used it. And I was cursing your name with that, too.
I hope you're taking notes here, Sam.
Oh, man, I've been foam rolling for days, man. It's the best.
Oh.
I love it. A lot of times we ignore sort of the range of motion aspect of what we do. And that's a big no. One part of the training cycle that I give to people all the time is a flexibility protocol that involves that foam rolling. And what foam rolling does for the viewers out there, for the listeners out there, some of you may be watching me now. For the listeners out there that aren't familiar with it, it's sort of the best way I can describe it is it untangles the Christmas lights. You ball those Christmas lights up in a knot January 2nd, throw them in the closet. You pull them out in December, forgetting that they were balled up, and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to straighten out these Christmas lights. Well, the fascia, the muscle in your body, the muscle fibers, they can get knotted up too. And when they get knotted up, you're going to have some issues because they're going to pull at your joints. So one maintenance protocol coming off the strength training and going into the more running is grab that foam roller, and you want to make sure that you keep those knots out of your quads, out of your hamstrings, out of your calf muscles. Because as you build more dense muscle through strength training, and just as your strength training in general, it can possibly lead to some stiffness, and that's like the kiss of death for a runner. You want to be fluid as you're moving. So you definitely want to make sure that you maintain a good flexibility protocol. And I'm telling you, pound for pound, foam roller is worth its weight in gold. It really is. You're talking about totally changing how your body operates. Just Google some self-myofascial release. SMR is what is typically referred as. And it's just one of the greatest ways to preserve your joints because when your muscles get tight, guys, when they draw up, when they knot up, you're shortening the distance from one joint to the next. And guess what the muscles are pulling on? They're pulling on that knee. They're pulling on that hip. They're pulling on that ankle, that Achilles tendon. And something's got to give. So foam rolling is one of the greatest maintenance tools that you can use as a runner. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I like that. And the other thing that I wanted to mention too, while we're talking about foam rolling is almost kind of a misterm for it. And it was something that I had learned too, is that you're not just simply rolling back and forth. If you can maybe just explain a little bit what you're really actually supposed to do with it. And it hurts so bad.
Well, I'll tell you what I learned from Chandler about foam rolling in the 3 days that he's been doing it. It's been insightful for me. And Chandler, I appreciate this. I hope you don't mind me sharing the information that you gave me here with your permission, or just give me permission. Crystal's right. So you see people in the gym and they're sort of rolling back and forth on the roller. It's just up and down and side to side, like they spend a little bit too much time at Chipotle. They're doing it incorrectly. What you want to do is you want to slowly roll down the appendage, and you're going to feel an adhesion, a knot. This is a place where you have muscle fibers that are sort of tangled up and tied together. When you get to that point, you want to hold pressure against that sort of sore spot. It'll feel sort of like a bruise or something like that. You want to hold pressure there for 30 seconds. I don't want to get too sciencey because I don't like get too sciencey, but there's an organ called a GTO. Just think about the Pontiac GTO. And it stands for Golgi tendon organ. And that organ is responsible for sending a signal to your brain and asking your brain for a request to send the signal back to the muscle to release the tension. That process takes about 30 seconds, which is why you've probably heard often people say, hold your stretch for about 30 seconds. There's science there. When you press against that spot, it sort of lights up that GTO and causes it to send that signal, bring it back down. And what you'll feel in a lot of cases is you'll feel a release of that tender spot in the muscle. And then you just continue to roll down the appendage until you get to another, what we call trigger point, hold there for 30 seconds and move on. That's the proper way to do your foam rolling. So you don't want to just writhe across the foam roller in pain. You want to hold the pain spot and writhe later, if that makes sense.
I'm still laughing at the Chipotle thing.
So yeah, thank you so much for that insight, Sandra. I was concerned about the question until we talked earlier, and he really cleared it up for me.
I guess that makes sense. I've never thought about that with the foam roller, but I know like with massages, a lot of times they'll stop and press down on a spot. So I guess the same logic there. I've never looked into that.
Heck yeah, that's the science.
We're getting all educated over here. This is cool.
That's right.
Our next question comes from Matt, and Matt's our friend. He's the host over at the Runified podcast, and he has a question about how to fit in lower body lifting into a running training plan. And I hear this a lot as well. He says, I often find it hard to do a quality lower leg lifting without sacrificing the quality of a running workout. And then he also follows it up with, will complaining about how sore my glutes, hamstrings, or quads are from lifting help my recovery efforts?
Oh, absolutely. It's said in training circles and in science that 90% of recovery is bitching and complaining. If you're not being and seeing, you're not recovering. So let's get those plates up. First of all, people, you need to concentrate there and start there. But to answer the other part of the question, because that part's a no-brainer. To answer the other part of the question, how to fit lower body lifting into a training plan, number one is you cannot approach it with a bodybuilder mentality. I would say conservatively, and I don't know Matt, but I'm sure he's awesome. If you're getting a tremendous amount of muscle soreness all the time from your lower body workout, you're probably lifting into a bodybuilding protocol more so than a running protocol. And I defer back to maybe a little bit lighter weight, maybe some balance techniques, because balance helps a lot with running as well. Maybe some slower tempo movements with lighter weight. And consider this, chop that workout down. you don't want to be doing more than a 20 or 30-minute workout, realistically. I mean, anything more than that just really doesn't jive with like you said, he doesn't want to sacrifice his running quality or something like that. He said you want to keep that workout short. You really, really do. And if you keep it short, it allows you to fit the lower body training in much more easily. You know, you can run a greater percentage of the week and do that lower body lift a smaller percentage of the week. And really, if you're in a phase of running, I would really suggest that you probably don't need more than a day of real lower body lifting. Now, if you're talking about corrective exercise for issues, you know, that's a different beast. But just for the short purposes of doing, you know, some lower body leg work, I say keep it relatively light, keep it relatively short, and it'll fit a lot better, and you won't feel like you're sacrificing that quality, because really the strength training should be enhancing your running. It should not be to the detriment of how well and far and fast you're able to run. Great question.
And speaking of great questions, do you want to go with the next one?
Robert probably has the most important question of the night. This may call upon all your training and expertise to answer this, but will a shot of tequila replace a protein shake?
Only in Tijuana.
There you go.
Flights to
Next
Tijuana.
Question. All right, so there you go, Robert.
Yeah. I'm going to book that flight. Yeah.
Next question comes from Therese, and Therese, she has actually been on our show when we did one with the Sub 30 Club, and congratulations goes out to Therese too, because she is the newly appointed executive director of the Sub 30 Club. So,
oh, nice!
Congratulations!
Yeah, congratulations!
Good job, Therese. Nice.
And so she has a really great question, because a lot of times we all come up with the excuse, I can't strength train because I don't have time. So she is asking, if I only have 10 to 15 minutes to do a quick strength training session, what should I do?
Oh, great question. This is ironic because I've started programming 15-minute workouts into my online clients' training protocols, some of them, because a lot of people think it's not enough time, and it absolutely is. So what you want to do here for sure is you want to target major muscle groups. If you only got 15 minutes, and that's for a couple of reasons. Number one, well, first, let me say what the major muscle groups are. You're talking about chest. It covers a lot of surface area of the body, back, and legs. Those three are sort of the big three. And the benefit there is, number one, they consume a lot of oxygen. You're working a wide area of muscle mass, a large surface area of muscle mass, so to speak. So it's going to require a lot of oxygen, which means you're going to get a great calorie burn. Number two, they sort of run the show. You know, those big groups, they run the show. And number three, those areas are really going to contribute to your run very, very well. All those major muscle groups, they sort of help us out with stabilization. In addition to those major muscle groups, you also want to throw in a compound movement, or multi-joint movement, sometimes it's called. I'll give you an example, one that Crystal's familiar with, a squat into a curl and a press. And the way you perform that is you do it with dumbbells. Crystal used to use a physio ball to do hers, but two dumbbells at your side, you perform your dumbbell squat. As you stand up, you come into a dumbbell curl. After you curl, you overhead press the weight, and that's one movement. You're getting several body parts working at one time, burning a ton of calories, getting you a great efficient workout if you string those exercises back to back. So I would say start with a squat, curl to press, go into something for chest like a push-up. Push-ups are great because they work your entire body also. A push-up's really just a plank that moves perpendicular to the floor, if you think about it. And planks work a lot of body. Go from the push-up into something like an overhead press for shoulders that causes you to have to stabilize if you're standing, and maybe go into something like a standing row for back. I prefer standing exercises if I'm trying to get the most bang for my buck out of a workout, because if I'm standing, I'm putting my core to work. If I'm seated with a backrest that supports my back, well, the chair's doing all the work. Crystal can tell you from experience that I very rarely have clients do seated exercises. And when there were seated exercises, usually I had them sitting on a physio ball or a Swiss ball to force them to use their core anyway. So that's two great secrets for you that I gave away. Multi-joint movements are awesome. And if you're standing, you always get core work because your core is supporting your spine and keeping you upright and stable as you lift the weights. I love that question.
All right. We've got a question here from Jeff now about body weight exercises for those that can't make it to the gym. And expanding on that a little bit, I'd be interested in hearing about ways to prevent getting unbalanced muscle groups, unbalanced exercises, if that makes sense.
Oh, gotcha. Absolutely. So with the body weight exercises, the simplest stuff to do, and that's the most effective, is you want to throw a plank in there. A plank is just a great exercise because when you're in that plank position, holding it, either an elbows down plank or the extended plank where your hands are down but your arms are straight, man, you're getting chest, back, glutes, quads, hamstrings, calves, biceps, triceps, everything works in a plank. So I definitely want to do a plank. Push-ups for sure, even though it's just a variation of a plank, really. Push-ups are great. And push-ups there's so many different varieties of push-up. Tempo push-ups, which Crystal's familiar with, but you've also got diamond push-ups where your hands are close in. You've got wide grip push-ups. You've got floor flies where you push up and then you walk a hand out away from your body, walk it back in. Do a push-up, walk the other hand out laterally away from your body, walk it back in. There's so many kinds of push-ups. You can do squats. Body weight squats are awesome. Single leg seated squats where you stand on one leg in front of a chair and slowly lower your body into the chair and try to get your body off that chair on one leg with the other leg up, with the other knee bent or the other leg slightly off the floor. Another one that Crystal's done that I programmed for her in the past. All those things are great body weight exercises. And to answer your question, Chandler, there are some single leg things that you can do. You can get on the floor and do a single leg glute bridge. Flat back, knees bent, one foot on the floor, 1 foot in the air. You can bridge and work those glutes evenly because you can isolate them. I've trained people that have used milk cartons. I had a client that was in, I don't know where she was, but it was close to the Arctic Circle somewhere. And she literally filled up milk jugs with water. And then she later found out that the water wasn't heavy enough, so she filled it up with rice. You can get a can out of your kitchen and do lateral raises with it for your shoulders. Like, there's so many body weight exercises that will allow you to utilize the things that are in your home already that they probably aren't sort of body weight exercises. But if you do those body weight exercises generally, Chandler, you're going to be even as far as making sure that there's symmetry on both sides, if that makes sense.
Yeah, okay, that makes pretty good sense to me.
Sweet.
Great. The next question we have is from Trisha, and it's a pretty specific question, so I'm not sure if you can help her out, but we'll give it a shot here. Her question is, how do you keep an unstable SI joint stable with strength exercises? What activities should someone whose SI joint is out or off avoid? And then she also wanted to add that she is in PT for this, but hasn't solved it yet.
First thing, let me do my due diligence, the legalities, and get into my scope of practice. As a corrective exercise specialist, my scope of practice involves injury prevention and bringing you back from injury, not medical diagnosis. So I'm not going to go down that road. And I'd also like to state that in this case, on the totem pole, I would be below the PT as a corrective exercise specialist versus a physical therapist who's had much more schooling than I have for this particular subject. Having said that, sure, I've got some ideas here. First of all, the listeners, what an SI joint is. So SI is the sacroiliac joint. And that's just fancy mumbo jumbo that lets me say big words because I paid thousands of dollars and I don't get to use them often. So I enjoyed saying that. I'm going to say it again. Sacroiliac. Cha-ching. So what that is your sacrum is basically the bottom of your spine. Let's just call it that. All the way down at the bottom of your spine. And that attaches to your hip. Not the hip bone where the ball and socket joint is, not where your leg moves back and forth, but sort of the ilium, you can feel that like at the very bottom of your waist, I guess. You've got a pointy thing right there. That's your iliac crest. So that's where those two things connect. So your spine connects basically to your hip bone. Hip bone connects. I'm not going to do that. But in any case, I almost went down a rabbit hole with that one, Chandler. I'm sorry. It was so, I couldn't resist it. So there's a lot of complexity back here. And it depends on which side that you have an SI joint issue. And what corrective exercise tells us is that there are some overactive muscles here and that there are some underactive muscles here. So if we can sort of release the overactive muscles, and if we can sort of strengthen the underactive muscles, then we can sort of help with this SI joint dysfunction. This is a little technical, and I'm going to try to simplify this as much as I can. It depends on which side the SI joint is giving you trouble. So if the SI joint on the right side is giving you trouble, then you have an overactive muscle on the left side of your body, and it's a tiny muscle called your piriformis. The best way I can put that is your top butt. Because we've all got a bottom butt, but then we've got the top butt. It's not really your waist yet, but it's not down into the meat of the butt area.
You're handling this very well.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I heard Chandler giggle. So
we're all giggling over here.
You can feel that piriformis. It's under a lot of superficial tissue, but Google piriformis and piriformis stretching. That will sort of help you out. It's PIRIFORMIS. So you're overactive on the opposite side. So again, if the side joint on the right side is causing you trouble, on the left side, you've got an overactive piriformis. You need to roll it some kind of way. Get in there and manipulate it. I use lacrosse balls, and I have clients stand against the wall with that ball pressed up against their top butt, and I have them manipulate and roll around on that wall till they find that piriformis, and they always know when they found it because it screams bloody murder. Also on the left side, you've got an overactive hamstring probably. You need to release that also. Also on the left side, you've got an overactive adductor. That's the inner thigh. So if you can sort of stretch those things out, the left piriformis, if it's the right SI, the left piriformis, the left hamstring, the left inner thigh, if you can sort of foam roll and manipulate those things, that will sort of help you with the muscles that are a little bit overactive. They're working hard on the left side, and they're pulling you towards that left side. If I had someone do a squat assessment and I looked at it from the back, they would be uneven. That's how I would identify this issue. One hip would be higher than the other from the back side. So you want to relax those things. You've also got some underactive muscles that aren't firing properly, which is why the other muscles are working harder than they have to, and you want to strengthen these. This is also on the left side. So on the left side, you've got the glute medius. That's your side butt. Not the top butt or the bottom butt, but that's the side butt. And the way you sort of strengthen the side butt is with that abduction machine. AB is in boy duction. That thing where you kick your legs out away from each other. You can do that with doing side steps with a band around both ankles and step to the left, step to the left, step to the left, cha-cha again, right foot this time, left foot this time, turn around, everybody clap your hands. So you want to work that left glute medius. You also want to work the left erector spinae. That's the muscles in your low back. You can do that by lying flat on the floor and straightening your leg, lifting the left leg up as far as you can. You won't get a lot of range of motion, but you can lift it up and down, up and down, up and down, keeping the lower back engaged and never setting the foot back down on the floor. I hope you're getting all this. I hope the folks that need this are writing it down. You're also underactive on your right gluteus maximus. That is the butt. And the way you can work that right gluteus maximus is you can use if you've got the machine in your gym that helps you do a pull-up, that's assisted. So it's got that plate that you can step down on and sort of supports your body weight. You can step on that with your right foot and press it straight down. That will help you work your gluteus maximus. You can do a single leg squat on that side, or you can do the lambada, the forbidden dance. That also helps with the gluteus maximus. Chop, chop, slide, not so much. And you've got an issue with your right hip flexor, and that would be the opposite motion. You'd lift your knee up to a 90-degree angle. That's sort of the corrective exercise process for that SI joint. I know it's sort of, it's way too sciencey for a radio explanation, but that's basically what you can do. As far as what exercise to avoid, completely depends on what for you irritates it. Unfortunately, I can't tell you that without interacting with you, without taking you through a few assessments. But I'm sure that she knows the things that, to a certain extent, the things that exacerbate it, sort of get away from those things. So I don't know how close the PT is to that, because that's corrective exercise protocol that I gave you: lengthening overactive or tight muscles, strengthening underactive or non-producing muscles. So I guess the best thing to say to Tricia is call me.
There you go. FitnessJonesTraining.com.
That's right. We'll see what we can do. Great question. I didn't expect something that in depth.
Hey, we've got good listeners here.
I see that.
Yeah. The next questions are kind of combined. Do you want to go ahead and combine those ones, Chandler?
I will try my best. We kind of have how often should one strength train if they're doing a marathon? How many times a week? How many minutes per week? I'm sure some people are trying to do, 5 hours a week, 5 times a day, as long as trying to get ready for 100 miles.
Here's my thoughts with strength training versus distance, or especially ultra distance. Nothing prepares you for running like running. In the absence of any type of muscle dysfunction or imbalance, I'd want to concentrate on the running as much as possible and maybe supplement with a little bit of strength training. Now, if you're talking about off season, totally different thing. You want to get stronger in the off season, 3 times a week, maybe even 4, depending on how well you recover, how young you are, and what your nutrition is like. But if you're in marathon training, you're rolling the dice, trying to incorporate a lot of strength training into that protocol, because nothing beats the running. And if you're doing the running, and nothing beats the recovery from the running. And if you're doing the recovery, kind of when do you strength train? That's a lot of stress for your body. It just really is. It just really is. So I'm going to say, I'm going to go conservative and say maybe one strength training, routine in the course of the week, and really, really dive in to those runs and make sure that you maintain with that foam roller and range of motion. That's going to be the crucial aspect is that range of motion and that foam rolling, because those muscles are going to knot up. They're going to want to develop adhesions, but just because of the amount of activity. I hope that helps.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I think that's probably encouraging to some people, because runners, we all have this tendency to think that we have to overdo absolutely everything. So I think that's, and which I think is some of the reasons why it keeps people away from strength training and some of the other stuff. Because their thought is, well, if I can't do it 5 days a week for 5 hours, like Chandler was saying, then there's no point to doing it. So
it all helps.
Absolutely. And then the next question comes from Richard, which I think he was kind of saying this somewhat jokingly, but let's face it, this question seriously comes up all the time. So his question is, what is an ab and where can I get one?
Oh my gosh, great question, Richard. If there's any question that I get more than any other question in life all the time consistently, it's how can I flatten my stomach? How can I get abs? How can I? So quick answer. Number one, you've got abs. Everybody's got them. That's the thing. When we talk about abs, we're really talking about the rectus abdominis, that 6-pack area. That's what most people are concentrating on. I encourage you to concentrate on the entirety of your core, which is everything that wraps around that spine. That's how you get functional. But if you didn't have abs, you couldn't sit upright, you couldn't stand, you certainly couldn't run. Let's push some myths away really quickly. Doing crunches, doing sit-ups, doing side bends, doing Russian twists does not burn fat from your stomach area. There is no such thing as any exercise in which you move a body part and fat burns from that body part. I have chubby cheeks. As much as I talk, if that were the case, I'd have a much, much more slender face than what I do. But unfortunately, no amount of talking is burning the fat from these childlike cheeks that I have. No amount of texting has reduced the thickness of my thumbs yet. It's just a myth, misnomer, bro science. It doesn't happen. You want to get down to those abs, you got to peel the stuff off that's on top of them. That's usually going to require some type of exercise or training and some type of nutritional protocol that in tandem allow you to be at a calorie deficit, meaning that you're consuming less calories daily than you are expending. If you burn 2,000 calories a day, you want to eat under 2,000 calories a day. Or if you eat 2,000 calories a day, you want to burn more than 2,000 calories a day, a caloric deficit. You do that for long enough, take care of your body, and you'll see those abs peek from underneath the veil of love that's around your midsection right now, Richard.
Yeah, I have a nice veil of love going right now. Coming off season. I have a new appreciation for that.
Nothing wrong with a little love. Yeah, nothing wrong with a little veil of love. The husband and wife's cooking for you. That's just love around your belly button. That's all it is.
I'm filled with love. Ooh, I like that. That's my new favorite term. I think we got one more question. Do you want to go ahead there?
Absolutely. Our last question of the night comes from Melissa. She asks, is there strength training for hamstrings, glutes, hips, or would it be more of a stretching regimen for those areas?
Oh, nice question. Both. Going back to my earlier comments, and I've answered enough questions at this point. You guys sort of know that you always want to do a combination of the things. What happens a lot of times is we don't look at the body holistically, and that causes issues because we think about strength training, but we don't think about flexibility at the same time. We think about flexibility, we don't think about strength. We think about strength and flexibility, we don't think about endurance. Or we think about those three things and we don't think about balance. And I try to incorporate all of those things into a training regimen. So yes, there's strength training for hamstrings. For a lot of people, their hamstrings are sometimes overactive. So they're tight all the time because the glutes are underactive. So in that case, when she asked, would it be more of a stretching thing? Well, in that case, you're going to be stretching those overactive hamstrings. You want to release them a little bit, but you're going to be strength training the glutes to bring things into balance so that everybody's working evenly. But sure, for hamstrings, you can do a hamstring curl, a stiff leg deadlift, a single leg deadlift. All those things work the hamstrings. For glutes, one of the best exercises you can do is a glute bridge or thruster. If you've ever seen this demonstrated, it's where you're perpendicular to a weight bench. You've got your shoulders and neck and head on the bench. You're bridged out away from the bench. Your knees are at a 90-degree angle, feet flat on the floor. And in a lot of cases, you've got the long bar across your hips with weight on either side. You dip your bottom down towards the floor with your feet flat on the floor, and you extend to straighten your body out again. So a glute bridge or a hip thruster, great for glutes. Hips, you can do abduction, from the word abduct, take away, where you push your legs out away from each other on that machine. Or you can do adduction, adduction, adding them together, where you do the machine the opposite way and you bring your legs in. But sure, you can do stretching and strength training for those areas. The real trick there is coming by some sort of assessment to know what you're doing. And that's the most important thing. And I'll finish with this as my final thought. If you guys don't have anything else for me,
no, please.
I'm happy to answer it though. You don't want to do things willy nilly, just all over the place. You don't want to just throw activity at your body for the purposes of throwing activity at your body. Which is why I'm not really a big fan of boot camps. I'm not going to get into that on your show, but you want to be specific about what you're doing and why. You know, I'm not going to go to the gas station with a flat tire and then try to put gas in the tire. That's not my issue. You know, or try to gas up my car. That's not my issue. The issue is the air in the tire. So I gotta pull around to the air pump and put the air in my tire. And all too often, people are just jumping into some activity haphazardly just to do some activity. And we do that a lot with strength training. We just go in the gym and lift some weight. Well, there's some methodology there. You know, there are reasons why you do things a certain way and reason why you don't do things a certain way. You know, it's really to your detriment to go in without that understanding. And there's plenty of places to get a plan or a program. I mean, you know, before I was certified, I would get programs from a Men's Fitness. You know, the young lady that I was dating at the time, she would get programs from Muscle and Fitness Hers or Shape or Oxygen or whatever. The information's out there from credible sources. You know, instead of going into a Facebook group and saying, hey, I want to lose 15 pounds by January 15th and have people, you know, I call it fitness Tourette's. And I'm not mocking people that have Tourette's, but, you know, people just blurt out one word and keto. You know, people like, yeah, I need to do a distance. I want to do a distance run this January. You know, what should I do to get done? Whole30, you know, or how should I squats? You know, people are just tossing information out randomly. There are plenty of credible sources of information like Fitness Jones Training on Facebook. Make sure that you're applying the right thing to the right situation. Because all too often I see people applying things to situations that the two things don't match up. Things don't match up. Be mindful of that.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. And that's a great place to end it. Thank you so much for coming on, Ren. Appreciate it. We've actually even gone overtime, so thank you so much. And again, we just want to remind everybody where they can find you. So, of course, the website is fitnessjonestraining.com. On Facebook, it's Fitness Jones. And on Instagram, it's Fitness Jones Training. Did I get all that right?
Absolutely.
Wonderful. As we're heading out here, we also want to give a shout out to the Ozark Mountain Daredevils for the use of their music in both the intro and outro of our show. If you wanted to learn more about the show or find past episodes, you can visit us at heartlandrunning.com. We'll also have the show notes with all the links for this episode as well. And you can join our Facebook group. That's where, when we do these types of episodes, where we pull the questions from. So if you want to be a part of that, please be sure to jump in. We also have a voicemail, or you can also text us. And yes, it's a real text. I had somebody just test it out the other day, and they texted me hi, just to see if it was real, which was kind of funny. And so that number is 513-486-4636. And of course, if you like the show, be sure to tell a friend. And so until next time, I'm Crystal.
I'm Chandler.
And we will see you next week.